We're about a week and a half away from Paulo Costa's retirement fight. And yeah, you heard that right. Retirement. Because I think that Robert Whittaker at UFC 298 is going to embarrass Paulo so bad that he's not going to want to show his face in the UFC octagon ever again. Maybe he could go to BKFC. We'll see about boxing. Not only is this man only showing up because he has to, and if he doesn't, he gets cut. This is the last chance. Okay, he's had many, endless ones. He's totally finessed the UFC into giving him countless opportunities despite sabotaging event after event after event and screwing over his opponents. But he's only showing up because if he doesn't get to keep that UFC banner in his Instagram bio. And that's pretty much why Paulo Costa's fighting these days. And not only that, not only has he finessed the UFC, Paulo Costa has finessed the fans because he is one of the select few truly mediocre fighters that's been able to maintain this image of being an elite fighter, right? He's got people thinking that he's just one of the boys, like the other middleweights, like Cannonier, Strickland, Adesanya. He's right up there. He's just a staple in the middleweight division's top 10. He's good enough, right? No. Paulo Costa does not belong in the top 10. Skill-wise, I don't even think he's top 20 in the middleweight division. And, I mean, I may as well address the elephant in the room right now. Whittaker's coming off of a KO loss to Dricus du Plessis, and people think that he's going to get knocked out here. Listen, Paulo Costa's power, it's just not there. Yet there are so many people that still think he's going to go in there and knock Whittaker out. Again, this idea that he's this big knockout guy. Where are all of the KOs? Yeah, sure, he's got a couple of TKOs. Fair enough. But who are these guys? A 65-year-old truck driver with a beer belly, Johnny Hendricks, looking like a featherweight past his prime, BJ Penn, Mermaid Man from Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy? Is this who we're talking about? This is the guy? No, I'm not saying, oh, that looks terrible. It's not all about power. It's just he doesn't have the skill either. Not only is he not knocking people down, he doesn't have the skill either. He doesn't have the hunger. And he fights like a guy that only kicks and hits pads when I watch him. Right? I mean, his hunger, it died out after the Adesanya fight. You saw him trying to do everything in his power to get away from that Marvin Vettori fight. He didn't want anything to do with it. God bless Marvin Vettori for being so tough and saying, you know what, screw this, Paulo Costa. I don't care what the weight is. I'm going to fight you no matter what. You're not getting away. And Paulo Costa lost to one of the most mediocre strikers in the UFC. And you look at what Robert Whittaker did to Marvin Vettori. Now, I hate to be the MMA math guy, but I think that we're going to see Robert Whittaker have a masterclass performance on Paulo Costa. Something that looks like a sensei disciplining his student, right? One of the students starts getting confident. Maybe they've been beating up guys that look like, you know, Mermaid Man from Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, you know, old 45-year-old with a big old gut type of fighters in the gym, and maybe they're picking up some confidence. Maybe he's getting to a known quitter in the gym like Uriah Hall, and he's mashing him up in the phone booth. Still can't knock the guy down with a legit, you know, shot to the chin. Again, this is not about power. Oh, he doesn't have any power. It's not all about power, but he lacks the skills too. Okay? And this is going to be an example where we this is going to be an example where we see the sensei like Robert Whittaker who may not have so much sting, and he doesn't want to hurt his student. Costas, we know Whittaker doesn't have any pop either. He's got all the skills in the world, just no pop. It's been forever since he's knocked anyone out. Whittaker doesn't want to hurt Paulo Costa if we're looking at this example of the sensei and the student, but he's going to discipline him. He's going to show him what's up. He's going to show him, you think you're all that? You think you're good? You've been beating up some of these cans in my gym. I'm going to fuck you up. Like, I'm going to sting you where you don't expect it. I'm going to take away every single offensive opportunity you think you have, because every time you take a step forward, I'm catching you with a piston-like jab down the pipe. You're starting to worry about that jab. Here comes the head kick over the top. You think you're going to walk. Here's a stop to the knee. And Paulo Costa, you know, like the student, when he thinks he can get the better of the sensei, is going to start to feel like, oh, maybe I'm not as good as I thought. Except this time, Costa, I don't even believe that he thinks he's that guy anymore. Maybe he was delusional back in the day, and a lot of fighters are delusional, and that's actually something that can be a good thing, right? If you feel like you're indestructible. This is the broken version of Paulo Costa that's not hungry. This is not the confident student. He's got the lack of skill like that student that we're talking about. He's going to take an ass whooping, but he already knows he don't have a shot other than a lucky man's chance. And I think that we're going to see Robert Whittaker style on this man, and I think we're going to see Paulo Costa look exactly how he looked in that Adesanya fight, where after 5 minutes, he was discombobulated. He knew he had nothing for Izzy, and what can I say, man? He just wilted. And I don't mean to say that Adesanya didn't hurt him as well, but it looked like Costa was crying on the inside, and I mean that. And I think that really did demoralize him. And you look at people after they fight Robert Whittaker as well. Marvin Vettori, right? Kelvin Gastelum. These are guys that talked about how they just had nothing for him, and they were shocked at the skill gap. Kelvin Gastelum has famously said that he questioned his career as a whole, his career choice after he fought Robert Whittaker, just because he had absolutely nothing for him. Marvin Vettori, the guy that beat Paulo Costa, was asked who he thought was the best middleweight in the world. This was in 2022 after he had fought Robert Whittaker. Actually, this was right after he beat Roman Dolidze, and the answer that he gave was he thinks that Adesanya is a tough matchup for Whittaker, but if you line up 10 guys in front of each of them, Whittaker is going to be able to make it look easier, that he thinks that Whittaker is the best guy in the world. And, you know, people are questioning Whittaker's hunger these days, just as they are questioning his chin, for example. And you talk about Robert Whittaker's hunger starting to slip off a little bit in the Dricus du Plessis fight. I mean, Dricus du Plessis, that man's willing to die in the octagon, okay? That guy's always pushing forward. He's got the hunger to be a champion. He actually is someone with serious knockout power that's also well-rounded. That, of course, he looks sloppy, but there is a method to his madness. He can game plan. He is a smart fighter. And then we're looking at Costa. You know, we talk about guys having 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the game. Costa's got a fucking toe in. If he's got any, he's got a little pinky toe he's stepping in. Half of him, he's sipping Mai Tais on the beach. He's hitting pads in Tulum, Mexico. And he's dipping his toe in just because he kind of has to. He wants to keep the UFC in his bio. He's not sure of what he wants to do after. He's maybe in talks to fight a couple of guys in Jorge Masvidal's boxing promotion. So it's clear that Costa lacks the power. We're going to have to talk about how they match up and what I actually think is going to happen. So I do believe Robert Whittaker is going to make Costa look similar to how Izzy made him look, where he's just going to be stopping him in his tracks. He's going to be too fast for him. He's going to have perfect timing, and Costa's just going to be a little bit too simple. A little bit too simple. His way to win the fight's to get Whittaker in the phone booth and to tee off on him. His way to win this fight is to break Whittaker a little bit, but I just don't think he's going to have that ability because Whittaker is a guy that moves around a lot. He's a guy that, although he doesn't have a lot of power, his karate blitz, the speed that he has when he blitzes forward, and the timing and the precision is second to none. I mean, you look at the way he beat Izzy up in the later rounds in their rematch. And I say beat him up. Maybe I'm exaggerating that a little bit, but I mean, if you look at round 4, round 5, and round 2 in the Adesanya fight, where Whittaker had a lot of success in that rematch, he was kind of doing to Izzy what Izzy was doing to Costa, right? He was just beating him to the punch. When Izzy would feint, his hip feint, you know, that usual hip feint that Izzy does, Whittaker would blitz forward with a jab or catch him with a lead hook. And unlike the first fight that they had where Whittaker was a little bit emotional and he was trying to take Izzy's head off because he was under this impression that if sloppy, short, tubby Kelvin Gastelum can give Izzy the toughest fight in the world, oh, I'm going to be able to take this man. I stood with Yoel Romero. I can destroy and bulldoze this guy. He found out the hard way. But Whittaker was sprinting towards Izzy. He was getting ahead of himself. He was trying to extend all the way on his combinations, and you just can't do that with a precision counter striker like Adesanya that can lean back with his reach advantage and catch you at the end of one of his combinations. And so the way that Whittaker adjusted after losing that fight is to stay within himself and to be, reserved, not to throw in long form combinations while moving downhill, but to explode with the karate blitz, maybe throw one hard strike, maybe a quick combination, a 1-2 high kick, a simple 1-2, and then get back out. Get back at range. Chuck the teep to the middle. Stomp on your opponent's knee. Just throw these like basic kicks just to keep your opponent at bay. And then every once in a while, as they take a step forward, you crack them over the top, right? You smash them with a jab. And I just think that's going to be the story of this fight. I think that's going to be the story of this fight. It worked for Adesanya. And, Paulo Costa, I think he landed a couple of body kicks, and that's it in that fight. Nothing else. Couldn't graze the chin of Izzy. I do think it's going to be a little bit easier to graze the chin of Whittaker, but because, I just think that Costa's going to need those long-form combos. He's going to need to get Whittaker up against the fence, shelling up. And I don't think Whittaker's going to give him that opportunity. I think that Whittaker is going to be cracking him coming in. I think that Whittaker is going to be stomping on his knees and kicking him to the body just to keep him at bay in the center of the cage. I think that Whittaker is smart enough to understand that if Costa's getting close to him and he's got his back to the fence, he's going to move along the cage laterally. And so I think that the jab is going to eat Costa up. It worked for Izzy. It worked for Uriah Hall. When I say worked for Uriah Hall, at least he was having a lot of success with it. And the timing of Robert Whittaker is something that Paulo Costa is just not used to. The last time he faced it, he melted. Okay? And listen, man, if you've got Luke Rockhold in front of you, and I'm going to talk about this, but if you got Luke Rockhold in front of you and he's turning your back to you and looking the way Abu Smagomedov did when he fought Sean Strickland and he gassed out and he broke and he turned his back to Sean and that was the beginning of the end. He was like a dead man walking at that point. Well, Luke Rockhold looked similar, his body language in the Paulo Costa fight. Costa was the fresher guy. He was the guy that had Luke Rockhold pinned up against the fence. You expect him to be able to find a finish there, right? He's just not able to make it happen. He's still able to land a flush shot every now and then, doesn't have the shot selection, doesn't have the fight IQ, the ability to make adjustments. He just couldn't get it. Could not get it. That's a guy that's been KO'd a million times. His success in that fight came in the grappling for the most part because Rockhold was still mincing him up on the feet a little bit, at least with some long-rangey kicks. And I also don't think that Paulo Costa is going to be able to consistently take down Robert Whittaker because he's got terrific takedown defense. I don't think we're going to see a hip toss like we did in the Dricus fight. I think Whittaker is going to be hip to that. No pun intended. I expect a smart fighter like Robert Whittaker to learn from that mistake where he got taken down and to understand that, you can't have a lapse of judgment no matter where you are in the octagon. If you stuff a takedown, until you're fully separated, there could be another one coming. You got to always be on your P's and Q's. And I just don't see Costa taking Whittaker down consistently. But, what I do see happening is Costa having a sort of competitive round in the first. I think that he's going to put a lot of pressure on Whittaker right off the bat. And Whittaker does tend to start kind of slow. We saw him have a slow start against Adesanya in the rematch. He got dropped in that first round, and then he made some incredible adjustments later on in the fight and had success. We saw it in the Darren Till fight. He struggled early on, got dropped there too. In the first Adesanya fight, early on, he got dropped. Even in the Vettori fight, things were competitive. That was a very close first round. Whittaker can look awkward early on. Takes him a while to make his reads, and I could see Paulo Costa making it close early. I could see him rattling Whittaker around every now and then. I still think that Whittaker's going to go in here knowing that he just got KO'd, knowing that you can't just underestimate anyone. And I don't think he really underestimated Dricus that much, but he's saying it. All right, so this is going to be a reminder. Do not fuck around. Even if Costa doesn't have a lot of KOs on his record, you can't let someone else start to gain momentum. He's going to play it safe early. Maybe we see him land some okay jabs or, some low kicks. Maybe he's going to start setting things up, going low so that he can land that high kick combination later on in the fight. What I think that we're going to see in the second and third round with Costa is the look of a man that's seen a ghost. I think he's going to accept defeat. He's going to be counting down the minutes of the ass whooping that's taken place. He's going to have to endure it. It's going to be embarrassing. And I don't think that Costa is going to throw caution to the wind in a moment like that, for example, like we've seen some other warriors do that are willing to go out on their shield. Like, what's his name? Korean Zombie. The Korean Zombie, when he fought Max Holloway, he was getting shown levels. And he probably understood, I'm not going to win this fight on skill. I've got to knock him out. That's the only chance I have. And he just went for it. He threw big winging hooks, chin in the air, and he got knocked out. And I respect him doing that. I don't think Costa's going to do something like this. I don't think he's got that same warrior spirit. I don't think he wants it. I think he's showing up for a paycheck and because he has to. I think this guy in the first couple of minutes of the fight is going to come out strong. He's going to have that fuck it moment. You know what? Fuck it. This is the last time I'm going to be here anyway. I'm going to actually try to knock this guy out. Let's see what I can do. If Whittaker survives the first couple of minutes, which I think he will, he'll make his reads. And I just think that Whittaker is going to be mashing him up, stopping him in his tracks, beating him to the punch. Again, there's so many attacks that Robert Whittaker has that are not only with perfect technique, but you just can't predict when they're coming, again, because he mixes it up so nicely. His timing is great. His speed is off the charts. And he's really good at setting up these kill shots or his best shots, like the high kick combination. He'll condition you low with knee stomps and front kicks to the body, with jabs and piston-like right hands through the middle, and you're not thinking about what's coming over the side, right? I'm sorry, I just don't see Costa's skill being able to win him this fight. And again, he doesn't knock anyone out. And I think people are looking far too deeply into this knockout loss that Robert Whittaker had. And you may be saying, well, Lucas, you're picking Topuria to beat Volkanovski. Topuria is on another fucking level to a guy like Paulo Costa. I'm looking at Costa as if he's arguably not even a top 20 fighter in the middleweight division. There's a lot of middleweights that aren't ranked right now that are incredibly skilled. And if you follow the sport, you know what I'm talking about. Ilia Topuria is probably the second best featherweight in the world right now, or at least the third, right behind Max. He's elite. That's the point. And Volk got knocked out 4 months ago. Robert Whittaker, his knockout wasn't as bad. He got dropped with a shot, sat down a little bit, took some follow-up shots, and a big body shot was the final blow that put him down to Dricus du Plessis. That was in July. We're 7 months later. Robert Whittaker's recovered. And if you're losing striking exchanges to someone as shitty as Marvin Vettori, you're fucked. I'm sorry. You are fucked. Again, this is not one of those, well, both guys are elite. Anything can happen here. It's not. It's a guy that's mediocre, that has a run-of-the-mill UFC skill set, that used to be a beast, was never truly elite, though. Used to be a beast because he was hungry, lost all of his hunger. And he's going in there with Robert Whittaker, who's been evolving, who was able to use the same kind of method that Adesanya used to sun Costa on Adesanya in the rematch. And I'm not saying that Whittaker sunned Adesanya, but what he did do is he beat him up in different rounds in the striking by out-timing him, out-precisioning him with jabs, with straight shots, staying reserved. Whittaker's been able to do this to very high-level opponents throughout his entire career. Costa's not done anything impressive in his career outside of a star-aligning moment against Yoel Romero. He's too simple. I think Whittaker is going to 30-27 him. And this might be the last time that we ever see Paulo Costa fight in the UFC. I think that after this one, he's not going to want to get in there anytime soon. Okay, so that's my official prediction. Dominant Robert Whittaker decision. The first round is going to be somewhat close. The second and third round are going to be master classes. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Until next time.